Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for spending some time with me on my journey. Today we're going to look at two models of pens recently released, well, within the past 6 months or so, from two interesting Chinese pen manufacturers. I think it's good to look at these from an aesthetics viewpoint. I think these are both groundbreaking in their own way, and I feel they deserve a special look at. And I do have collected a fair number of these, so we get to look at them with various different finishes and colors. Here are the Fuliwen 017 models, and I have two different snake roll stops, a gold one and a silver one. And then, based on my encouragement from watching some of Doug's videos, I purchased a sterling silver cat adjustable ring that I put on this third 017. So we'll look at those a little bit more in depth. And this is the Moonman M8 in the three finishes that it's been available in. Here's the multicolored, kind of like abalone chip model. Here's the gold foil model and the silver foil model. Now, unfortunately, these pens are getting extremely hard and difficult to find. They probably were at their height about 2 to 3 months ago when you could potentially order them. The gold one was in very limited supply, so I'm extremely happy to have gotten one. I also have a red 017 on order. It's been on order for about 6 weeks, so hopefully at some point in time it does show up in my mailbox. But you know, I figured it was worth the risk to try to buy one and see if it'll come in. You know, based on the pictures, it might be like this purple pen here, but who knows? Let's look a little bit more closely. I think this cat roll stop is super cute, and so I learned a lot from this. It was inexpensive. Here's the auction that I bought it with, and it arrived in, you know, a reasonable amount of time. Those eyes are just incredible. So the challenge to me is a pen is a little bit thin for a ring to fit on, so you need to compress these a lot. And I can only go so far with the tail and the snoot of the cat. So it's not exactly a clean fit, but it is fairly, you know, it's on there. And it does do its intended purpose of stopping the pen from rolling, but it also is fairly heavy. Will give you the weight of the cat. Very similar to what PenDBS did with their cat on the 486 model. So that's how that one worked out. And if you compare it to a snake, which also has some nice eyes in it, I think both of these have their pluses and minuses. The snake is hard to get it to actually fit tight. You know, I worked a lot on this one, you know, bending it in various ways, so it has a fairly good contact area against the barrel. And I'm certainly never going to glue any of these on, because to me this pen without a roll stop is still a very attractive and nice design. So the M8 I think broke new bounds because of the finish, the way these chips are embedded in a sheet and made into a pen. Some reviewers have talked about the fact that the clear coating doesn't seal in all of the different chips, and I haven't found. I've looked at these very closely, and I guess I lucked out in getting pens that are all pretty well made, well, very well made. But this is just an amazing approach. I read that they were having more difficulty manufacturing the one with the gold foil in it compared to the silver, and I think abalone probably also was a little bit of a challenge because the gold and abalone have disappeared much more quickly. The silver one is still available in some areas, from some sellers. But I placed a number of orders. I think less than half of the orders I placed were actually delivered for various reasons. But yeah, I just kept ordering, and eventually the gold one showed up, and I paid almost $40 US for the gold one, which was on the high side, but I didn't want to risk losing that opportunity to get one, and I'm certainly am happy about that. So the pens do post, and they post fairly well. The cat certainly backweights the 017, and that's why to me the cat is something I would use if this was a desk pen. If it was a travel pen, I would just not use any type of roll stop and just post it when I was writing with it to keep the cap in place. These are two different design and engineering of pens. Here the section is the same material as the barrel and the cap. Here that section is black, which is used in a lot of Moonman pens. Also inside this section is a metal insert. So this is more done in a more classical style, kind of like a lot of dual folds are done that way, dual fold designs like the M600, and also the dual folds that Parker makes today. A lot of higher end pens have a metal insert that is part of the section. I think part of that is to give it strength and stability. I think the other reason is you get a little bit of a front weighting of the pen during writing, which I think is a good thing. This is just completely all resin, so without this roll stop, the only piece of metal is the nib. And let's look a little bit more closely at those sections and nibs. The Moonman M8 has a straight conical type section that diameter slowly decreases as you get towards the nib. And there's a little bit of a step up here, whereas the 017 has a more traditional shaped section that does taper down and then has a little lip here just before the nib. And you have your threads, and then you also have a little step up here, but as you can see, this step up is considerably further away from the nib than on the M8 design. I find both of these pens to be extremely comfortable to write with for long periods of time. So both of these sections work well for me if I have to choose one. Even though the 017 is a little bit thinner in diameter, I like this design better than the M8, but I certainly, neither of those precludes me from doing any long writing. The nib on both of these are very nice nibs. They're you know, probably the high-end nib, a high-end steel nib from these two pen manufacturers. They're both a fine nib, but I think the Fuliwen is a medium, and this is a fine as designated, but this is more of a fine medium, and this is more of a medium fine as far as, and we'll look at these when they, for the writing sample. But also it's a very simplistic design. Neither of these are that ornate, but they certainly do provide a good writing experience. So I needed to throw in another 017 because this is the original Fuliwen medium nib in this Starry Night model. And this is a replacement nib that they sent with some of the pens when I ordered them. And I have to say that I've been writing with all of my 017s and I haven't noticed a significant difference. But as you can see, this is silvery. This is gold tone, which a lot of people were not happy with the gold accents and the silver foil, but I think it's fine. It's kind of like a contrasting look. But I had to just let you know that this is the nib that usually comes with the 017, and this is a replacement nib that some of the sellers offered. So what pens are we going to compare these original, the M8 and the 017? There's your 017 without the roll stop, because I don't think in this extra size you want that roll stop there. You want to look at the pure design. And next to it is a Carolina Pen Charleston series. Similar swirls in the resin, similar shape and design. So all of these have a tapered end to them, which facilitates posting. And also I think, you know, as we have here my Franken Schaefer balance with a striped cap and a black barrel, something I put together. And it's called balance because I think this shape and design provides balance to the pen, because when you taper down the ends, then that's less material, less weight. So the weight becomes more centered in the pen, and to me that makes the pen feel better in the hand for long writing sessions. This is an Edison Pearl, which again is a similar type of shape. That's a Schaefer, and these are two Schaefer balances, and this one is that pearlized ebonite, where they have chunks of seashells embedded in the ebonite, which I think is a similar type of process as they made the M8 with, but this is done in the 20s and 30s, and of course this is done in 2019. Let's take the caps off and look at the sections. Posted, they take on a different look. You may have noticed that the pearlized ebonite pen is different than the one I originally brought out, because the one I originally brought out didn't have a nib on it, so I figured it would be better to show one with a nib. So of these pens, the Edison Pearl to me is the least ergonomically pleasant one to write with. You have this very small, highly curved section. You have a really huge step up here, because when the pen is capped, it's minimalistic, and the cap and the barrel have the same outside diameter, so that means that these inside parts need to be a lot smaller. There's no step up on the Schaefer balances, and that was a design trait that they had from day one. Small section here, interesting ink window, threads, and then the body of the pen. So these can be held any position. If you compare the Schaefer nib with this number 6 Yovo nib, you'll see it's slightly smaller. The Moonman nib is here for, in relationship. Again, we discuss these sections a lot. To me, the Charleston from Carolina's pen is very nicely done. I like this section design here. Yeah, there's a little step up, but not obtrusive, just like a little step up here and a little step up here. So the pens work in many ways and have different attributes when you're using them. So these are the 5 pens we're going to write with. I think they're an interesting representation of this group, with the Carolina Charleston being the one outlier, and we'll discuss that when we put nib to paper. So it's April 2nd of 2020, and I did my eBay searches. The 017 is completely gone. There's nothing left. People are selling the Snake, but no pens, at least as far as I can find. There may be other sources, but when eBay is sold out, generally the other sources are also in limited supply, if any. Much to my amazement, the M8 has come out with another one of the kind of ebonite version. So what's left is the 2 ebonite versions, purple and green. So the one I had is labeled purple, so I ordered a green one. So now I have an M8 coming. There's not many pens in my pen pipeline, but I have plenty of pens in different places that I think would make interesting reviews, and you'll be seeing those come out in the next couple weeks or months, and I'm certain I'll have a lot of time on my hands to do the reviews. The other thing that I found interesting was when I actually weighed the pens, the weight was not what I had really thought. The 017 and the M8 basically weigh about the same, about 29.5 grams. And the barrel for both of them weighs about 20 grams. The 017 is 21, so they're really very, very close in weight, even though there's much more metal in the M8. But the resin that they use and the way they machined it, there's a lot of thick resin, and that gives the weight to the 017. And also I think maybe the fillers that they use for the pearlescence and the swirls or whatever might be denser and add weight to it, and the resin used here is probably a lot lighter weight. So that's made up for by the metal sections. So enough talk, let's put nib to paper. You got to hear the nib on paper, and I think you'll hopefully hear that they're all very smooth. They're all very consistent writers. And yes, the Fuliwen here was a little bit of a hard start, but then I've been playing with these pens on and off. A couple days ago, I wrote 4 or 5 pages with this pen, with this ink, and it was fine. So that's one of those things that come across when you're actually trying to do a video in one take and not multiple takes. I did a smear up here to show how wet the Moonman M8 with the Moonman fine nib is. I mean, that's just a very nice writer, nice consistent writer. Here's the Fuliwen with the medium nib, and it's really about the same width, even though this is called a fine, this is called a medium, and this is not quite as wet as the Moonman. Some of that may have to do with ink. So the Moonman M8 has a Krishna ink in it. This one has Diamond Imperial Blue. Let's see what we got here. This has Diamond Oxblood in it. And this has Seetson Klinger Orchid, but I kind of mixed inks here, so there's a bunch of inks here. And this just has nice green ink from Pen BBS. At the end of the day, the Fuliwen fine, which is in this 017, it's a replacement nib like the generic fine in this Fuliwen. This is the finest of these nibs. I just throw in the Carolina Charleston because it's a ground left oblique. It was ground by Joshua. So I bought the pen at the Washington Pen Show a few years ago from Jonathan. Immediately took it to Joshua to have the nib ground, and we worked, you know, back and forth with him grinding and me writing until I was very happy with the nib. And you can see the line variation that you get from that grind. So all in all, these are all, I find these all great writing instruments, you know, things that I can write with every day. Pens that are very comfortable, they're visually exciting. You just feel good. You feel good when you write with them, and that to me is the real key to a pen that I enjoy. So hopefully you've enjoyed this look at 2 models of pens that I find to be excellent writing instruments in many levels, and I also think that they've created their own type of pen. You know, there wasn't any real pens similar to these before them, and maybe not after, based on what's available currently for sale, but who knows what will happen over time. So thank you for watching. Hopefully you can find a pen and ink that you enjoy writing with, and in these challenging times that we're living in now, writing letters is a great social distancing thing to do, and I've find it to be very therapeutic even before the current stay-at-home orders have been put out there. But everything will change at some point in time, so this too will pass, and hopefully all of us survive and our loved ones survive, and we look forward to those days when some type of normalcy returns. So get out there and find a pen, go through your pen collection, be it 1 or 2 pens or more. Put some ink in them and get some paper and write some letters. So we've reached the end of this video. You can see how this pen starts right up, and this is that, you know, Fuliwen, you know, basic pen that comes with the 017. So we're going to say bye for now. Stay safe, stay healthy. Till the next video.